Are you more of a problem solver or a problem finder? I was listening to a presentation and a video with Tom Bilyeu and Tony Robbins, and that came up in the video, and that made me think so hard because as part of my life, I'm 50 plus years old. My life has been a variety of these situations: problem solving and problem finding. And when I'm in the problem solving mood, anything that comes my way, I can address it, I can take care of it, and usually I come out on the other side energized. On the other hand, there are times in life where I'm more in the problem finding mood. And then when that happens, the issue is that then I see a problem, and instead of trying to solve it, I see that problem and then I define it, I see it bigger, and then it drags me down, takes my energy away, and at the end of the day, I'm not anywhere further than having a big problem. And I don't know if it's the same with you, where sometimes days come in and everything works well. Now that's a good question. And as a teacher, I've been discussing and see how students in high school actually see their learning journey. And if you see a student that is, let's say, a problem solver, any situations that come to them, they'll see it as being exciting. They'll be curious about it because it's a problem and they want to solve it, regardless if it is how to organize an essay, how to finish a book, how to create a robot in robotics, how to solve math problems, how to, as a mechanic or a carpenter, trying to solve how to fix something. And it's quite exciting. But then I also realized that there's a lot of students that may be problem finders, in which case if they come up with, if they have an assignment, it gets too hard, then they just give up. Or if it's something that is too hard, they will step back and let other people do the work for them. And what happens is that it gets to a point where little problems, instead of being resilient, being resourceful to solve them, then problems get bigger and bigger. And then if they struggle a little bit, let's say in grade 9, then they struggle a little bit more in grade 10, a lot more in grade 11, and then at some point I think some people may have difficulties to graduate. Okay. So the question is, okay, how do we get from this idea that you're a problem finder and try to do more of the problem solving? Now, I'm not saying that in our lives we'll only be problem solver and we'll never be a problem finder again, or someone defining problems. And I'm not saying that one side, someone feeling so down because the problems are so big in their lives. And I know some people are like that and never find the light at the end of the tunnel to feel better. So the question is, how can we find a way to get more of the problem solving aspect of life? And if we get in a situation where we're in the problem finding stage or days, how can we find a little glimpse to make us feel better and be able to step back on our feet and say, okay, what is the next step so I can go to the next step? The reason why this is so important is that if you're not able or don't have the resources or the resourcefulness to go from being in the problem finding and defining phase into the problem solving phase, then how can you be able to get back up when life pulls you down? How can you find a way where things are tricky and they want to make sure that you want to better define how the solution is? And I think that is quite important. So let's see if I can give you some tips on how to deal with this. My first tip is, regardless if you feel that you're full of energy and can resolve any problem, or you're in a phase where things are tricky for you, I want you to take a moment to appreciate where you are. And it's quite important because if you are facing a situation, it's important to first acknowledge who you are, acknowledge your thoughts about the situation, and acknowledge your feelings about that situation. Because only in you understanding who you are at that moment, can you feel the present moment? Because regardless of what the next step is, you need to focus on what the present tense, or the present tense, that's funny, the present moment is. Because if your mind is in the past, that could create anxiety. In the past, it could create momentum to know that you can solve the problem. If your mind is in the future, you might be in a situation where the situation may feel so overwhelming that you freeze, or it might give you the drive to move forward. So regardless of the past or the future, what you need to do is focus on the present time, the present moment, to know what will be the next step. Step 2, when you focus on the present time, the best thing I think is to take a piece of paper or your journal and write down the situation. By writing the situation, you take the thoughts, the ideas, the feelings, and sometimes it's hard to put words into feelings, but if you can put it down on paper, then you take all of this information and you put it down on paper. That does a few things. If you are in the problem-solving mode, then it will outline the different steps that you need to do, and then you'll be able to organize them, and that will be your ticket to the next step. If you are feeling that you're more in a problem-solving or defining moment, by putting it out on paper, you take the situation out of your mind, and you will feel lighter and being able possibly to see the situation a bit more objectively. Now, I know there's all kind of situations that can happen. Some situations are worse than others, and I'm not a therapist and I cannot solve every situation because it's almost unlimited how many different situations there can be. But you can still see it as an option. And by the way, if you think that you need some help, don't hesitate to find a coach or find a therapist, find a doctor to make sure that you have the support for you. My third step is once the information is on paper, then you have to see and address, okay, what are the things I can do at this time? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the situation where more in a problem finder and defining moment, and you'll see both will merge in a moment. If you feel down and all you see is a problem, it's so big you don't know what to do. If it is on paper, you'll be able to organize your thoughts, the ideas. And what I mean by organizing is that if you have a negative feeling, you could say, okay, what would be a positive feeling about that? If there's a situation that seems to be impossible, then you could say, okay, I don't know how to do it, but do I know someone? Do I have the resources to find someone that has gone through something similar and was able to overcome that situation? That's quite interesting. So you may not know how to do it, but you might know someone through videos, through books, biographies, autobiographies, someone to help you. It could be a coach and a therapist too. So you get your thoughts that is big, your the situation that may feel overwhelming. If you have some negative thinking, well, what would a positive thinker think about that situation? And then what you can do is you realize that, okay, there's a situation there. I may not have all the resources because sometimes we don't have the time, the money, the support for some situation. But the idea is once you have put together that there's options that is different than the current time, then you might be in a situation where you become curious, saying, okay, I might be able to find a way to get out of the problem finding situation. And then by curiosity, then you get closer to what I call the problem solvers. Because problem solvers, what they do is they look at a situation, they say, okay, there's something that needs to be fixed, then, or needs to be solved, need to be answered. And it may not be for you as a human, it could be for others as humans, it could be for society, it could be even a puzzle, having the satisfaction to have been able to answer the call of solving it. And then from there you say, okay, if curiosity is there, let's see if I can break down in smaller steps what I have to do. Because regardless if you are a problem solver or someone that is having some difficulties, solving situations can be very, very overwhelming. There's some high achievers that can do amazing things, but if you ask them to do a task, they may not know where to start to actually get it done. So the best thing is, once you have that curiosity and you have put on paper what is a situation that can be resolved, then you say, okay, I would like to go from point A to point B. What are the 5 steps that I need to do to go from point A to point B? For example, if you have to cook dinner, then from point A to point B, A, you're getting hungry or you're thinking about the meal, and B, sitting at a table. Well, there's several steps you need to do. First, you need to go and decide what you're gonna cook. Then second, go to a place where you can get the food you need and ingredients. Third, you need to prepare the ingredients. 4, you need to cook and the ingredients into the recipe. And 5, serve it for everybody to eat. So what you did take a situation and you divided it in 5 steps. And even if you find that 5 steps, they're overwhelming, then take each of those 5 steps and divide them into 5 smaller steps. So to go from A to B, then you might end up with 25 little steps. And you don't want to see each of the steps as being very big. What you do, for example, in my idea of the meal, you are thinking about what you're gonna eat. Okay, it's the step of finding out what you're gonna eat. But some people say, okay, let's see if I can find a recipe book. Let's see if I can call a friend to see what they are eating tonight. Let's see if I can reflect on what I enjoyed the week before as a meal. You could decide to look into the fridge and say, okay, what do I have in the fridge that could give me an idea of what to cook? So you see, you can take each of the steps and break it down in smaller ones. And guess what? You can take those steps and say, okay, well, I did step 1, 2, 3 very quickly. Great, this is a win. You can celebrate the win, because the best way to go from problem finding to problem solving is to be able to realize that successes are possible. And once you have a success, then you can actually celebrate a win. By celebrating a win, you get into the excitement and saying, okay, I had an idea, I went through, I solved it, and I'm proud of myself. And from there, you go to the next step. And that will go and be good for anything you have to do. Taking over a course, if you're in high school or university, college, if you are mechanics, and there's a funny sound coming out, you have a client saying, my car has a funny sound and you need to solve that. It could be an engineer that has to take care of a bigger problem. It could be you having to clean the house. Or you might be a project manager, needing to think of your project, dividing it in small parts so you can delegate what needs to be done. See, there's always a way to find what you can do. I'm not saying that there's no problems around us. There are always issues. And I'm the first one to say sometimes, oh, I have something to do. I think the best thing is to procrastinate and watch a few videos so I don't have to address what I have to do. So I'm not saying that it's easy to come up and deal with everything we have to do. On the other hand, sometimes it is important to say, okay, let's see if I can take one thing I have to do and let's see if I can solve it. By solving it, what happens is that you can take the mental energy you're using to keep that problem in your mind, you put it away, and then you free energy for one more things, one more adventure, one more fun things that can be done. On this, I would like to hear from you. Put in the comments before, what is that one thing you're gonna do to one situation you will solve in the next few weeks, knowing that it may not happen overnight, but if you can take of one thing at a time, then it opens up opportunities for the future. And we're gonna put here, here another video for you to watch, because every time we are here on my channel, we're here to learn new ideas, new perspective, so that you can be great. On this, I'll see you in the next video.